heard is so well known that I fear we have forgotten how beautiful it really is. We could stop and comment on every single detail in that story, but the homily isn't really the time for an in-depth commentary. What I will say, though, is this. When I have taught this parable to school children, I have often stopped reading at the part where the son comes to his senses and decides to return to his father's house. I ask the children, now that the father has seen the son, what do you think happens next? Inevitably, at least one of the children there will say, the father grabs the son by his shirt, yells at him in full public view, extracts a heartfelt apology from him, and then sends him to his room to be grounded for at least the next few months. Then I continue to read the story, to say what Jesus says happens, and how the story unfolds, just to show them how unexpectedly and how extravagantly the father in the story responds to the son. He runs to receive and embrace the son. He doesn't let him finish his half-baked apology. He immediately gives him the finest treatment and throws a party to celebrate his return. We might be tempted to ask whether the father in the story suffers a little bit from amnesia. Has he forgotten what the son has done? But that's the point of Jesus' story. God doesn't forget. He remembers, even more than we do. He remembers the infinite dignity He has given us. He remembers that we are His children. He remembers just how much He loves us. The Father remembers even what the Son has forgotten. Others might see a man who has hit rock bottom. They might see a life that perhaps has been destroyed, ruined. A son who has done the unforgivable. But the Father sees a son, His son. A son who was lost and is now found, but always a son. This is in fact the third of the parables Jesus says on this theme, and each of them ends in a similar way that is surprising. The woman rejoices when she finds the lost coin. The shepherd celebrates on finding the lost sheep. The father throws a banquet, a celebration, to celebrate his son's return. The God revealed in the scriptures and in Jesus Christ is not one who is vengeful and vindictive, but amazingly is one who rejoices in forgiving the sinner. In fact, there is a homilist from the medieval ages who reflects on this aspect of these three parables. And this is what the homilist says. Everything we have from God, in some sense, has come from God. There is nothing that we can give to God that already hasn't come from Him, in some sense. Everything except for one thing, the joy of forgiving us. Everything we give to God comes from Him, except for the one thing, the joy of forgiving us. We can give God the joy of forgiving us. And yet Jesus insists that it's not just about receiving mercy, but becoming instruments of that mercy. Jesus, after all, tells this story to the religious authorities who are complaining at His extravagant gestures of mercy to tax collectors and sinners. Perhaps we need to ask ourselves today, are we, even in God's house, quick to pass judgment on those whom we perceive to be missing the mark in this or that aspect of the Christian life? Are we quick to place some people quickly on a pedestal simply because they present well, or they are rich and influential, or perhaps because of their religious state of life? Do we find ourselves at times congratulating ourselves for being more devout, more law-observant, more well-informed about church matters, more than all those other sinners out there? Or as we, as Pope Francis so frequently encourages us, a church, a community of sinners seeking the Lord, a community in which everyone feels welcomed, loved, encouraged, forgiven, encouraged and strengthened to live the gospel's way of life. Do we recognize that all of us stand before the Lord ultimately with empty hands, fragile human beings in need of the Lord's grace and mercy, hopefully with our trusting faith rather than with confidence in our own merits? Now on this fourth Sunday of Lent, we hear a theme that resounds through all of Lent. For us who have received mercy in Christ, the mercy of Christ calls us to be ambassadors for Christ, to become instruments of God's mercy for God's wounded people here and everywhere.